So Cavshiri, what does Cavshiri mean? Is it a grape? Is it a place? What is it? Actually is, and that's also, by the way, a lot of people, when they see a wine, Irancy. What is that? Is that a brand? Is it, it's a place in France. Is it red? Is it white?
Yeah.
We presume that people know this stuff, and there's no reason. There's a million different wines out there. Why is anybody going to know about anything? So Cavshiri means in Georgian coming together. What does why coming together? Basically, it's a fat old former wine critic from Britain, me, and a cool 40-odd year old cool Georgian winemaker. So two very different people.
This is Vladimir.
From different countries.
Yeah.
And essentially we're blending wines from different regions in Georgia. We're blending different grapes. So there's 11 different grapes in there. We're blending vintages. It's a multi-vintage. And we're blending techniques. Some of that wine was made in an amphora and some in stainless steel, some in oak. So essentially that's all about coming together. And I wanted the label to reflect that. So you've got these two roads, these two paths coming together. And because we're in Georgia and there are chapels and monasteries everywhere, that's the Georgian part of it. And we have put some Georgian language on them, and it's impenetrable.
Welcome to the Wine Podcast. I'm Suzanne Mustacich, your host. Today, my guest is Robert Joseph. He is the wine thinker. He's a former wine critic. He's a journalist. He's a prolific author. He's a very successful consultant. He consults with large and small companies wanting to create either a new blend or a new brand. And he's also created some very successful wines of his own. These are two of them right here, all without owning a vineyard. How does he do it? Let's find out. Robert, welcome to the show.
Great to be here.
So first, tell our listeners about the wines that you make. Le Grand Noir, Greener Planet, Cavshiri. Am I saying that right?
Cavshiri.
You see, okay.
So basically, there's three things going on here. We could say four. The Grand Noir we started 20 years ago as in those days, a new world wine from France. We were going to do a Bordeaux, a non-vintage Bordeaux. I wanted to compete with Mouton Cadet, and it was too hard. The Bordelais were too hard to deal with. And when I talked to distributors elsewhere, they weren't too interested. So forget it. Basically, what they said was relevant. People who want a brand don't want Bordeaux, and people who want Bordeaux don't want a brand. So we went down to Languedoc, and we found some brilliant people at a place called Cellier Jean d'Alibert, who were just like my memory of the Australians in the 80s. They were really open and ready. What do you think of this? Try that. And we started to work with them. We started with a Cabernet Syrah, which we called Cabernet Shiraz at the time, and a Chardonnay Viognier, and everybody said you'll go bust because these are not styles from the region. They're not typical, Yeah. And that was why we got a black sheep on the label. We were called Mouton Noir for about a week, and then the letters started coming from a chateau in Bordeaux. So, and we've had those letters every now and then since, but we seem to be okay now. So that's basically, it's a brand. Today there are 16 different SKUs, and basically they're all pretty easy to get.
And you make them all at the same co-op?
All at the same cooperative. There's 16. There's a lot of land there.
I've been there. Remember, I went to go visit.
6,000 hectares of land, and we are taking grapes from different altitudes, blending them. So everything here is about blending, and everything I'm involved in effectively is blending. And we now sell a lot of wine around the world, 3.8 million bottles, 74 countries, and every country takes different wines. So we make brilliant Viognier. I will say brilliant Viognier. I think the Viognier is one of our best wines. We can sell it in 5 countries, I think. It is too hard to pronounce, etc., etc. We do a really good Malbec, small volumes. Again, some countries take it. So the Chardonnay goes everywhere, the Cabernet goes everywhere, but we're very used to understanding what each market wants. All of the wines are Vin de Pays, IGP, except for 2, which are the reserves. And again, relevantly there, we could call them Minervois, because we're in Minervois. We're choosing to call them Languedoc because we reckon, we may be wrong, Minervois doesn't seem to have a great value as an appellation. In France, you can get quite a lot of cheap Minervois, but the French know it better. Languedoc, nobody really understands it as an appellation, but it's a name that people know from maps and geography and so on. So we actually think that's a stronger name to use. But again, the reserves are relatively a small part of it. And these sell in the States for about $12.
Okay.
The reserves would be better, closer to 20. And we do a sparkling, we do a rosé, and we now even do 2 zero alcohols. Then if you want to go on, Greener Planet is an organic, sustainable organic brand, quite small at the moment, and we could come back to that. And then Kavshiri is a wholly new project. We started working on it just before the lockdown. And this is from Georgia. I've fallen in love with Georgia as a place. And it is totally the opposite concept, if you like, because it's made from a whole load of Georgian grapes that nobody's ever heard of in a place that no one's ever heard of. And as you found the name, I mean, Kavshiri is...
I struggled with it.
That is pronounceable by Georgian standards. So we'll come back to that. But essentially, these, to me, reflect two different sides of the wine industry. And actually, I brought along a book that I did during lockdown, as it happened, which was done for Chateau Malmatique La Gravière. And the interesting thing about that was this is a Bordeaux Chateau, a Cru Classé in Pessac-Léognan. And again, I think it's a different market. And so in terms of branding, positioning, how do we talk about each wine?
Okay, so say somebody wants to create a wine. They don't own a vineyard. And they come to you as a consultant. What are the first steps? What are the first things you have them think about?
I think the first thing is Michel Rolland, who died recently, who I liked a lot. He always talked about understanding the customer. And there are two customers here. One is the client who employs Michel. And as he said, people say that I make all the same wine for everyone. I don't. When I'm making wine, when I'm helping Ozone or Onalaya, they know what they want. I help them make that wine. When a billionaire in Napa says, hey, Mr. Rolland, can you help me make some wine? They don't necessarily know what they want. They want the 95 points. So he said, I give them 95 points. And yes, that will tend to be a Parker-pleasing wine. Ozone may not be looking for that Parker-pleasing thing. So essentially, number one, who is the client? What are they liking? What do they want to get out of it? Is it a vanity project? Is it a commercial project? I often say that the wine industry is divided between peasants and hobbyists. Yeah. And there are some businesses, but there are a lot of the other two. So essentially, firstly, there's the client. And secondly, who is going to buy the wine? Because there are so many stories. And Suzanne, you live here, you know, there are so many stories of very nice people who've retired, bought a little chateau somewhere in Bordeaux or in the Languedoc or wherever it is, and they have got a barn that is full of wine. And the worst thing about the wine business compared to spirits and beer is that those vines have babies every year. And those babies are bottles or they're tanks of wine, and these people haven't got tank space. And what do you do with 2 or 3 year old bottles? And we've got professional chateau owners who've got 3 and 4 years of stock. Mm-hmm. So how is a newcomer going to come in? So understand who it's for. Understand that we're going to have to spend some money on marketing to those people. And also, very crucially, understand the distribution. How are we going to get the wine into the hands of the people we are going to persuade to buy it?
So for these two wines, who are the consumers for them? How do you market them? And distribution?
It's basically, and I'm very careful about this in the sense that there will be an overlap. It may well be that people who buy Le Grand Noir might occasionally buy Kavshiri and vice versa. And also, when you're talking about consumers, there are some people for whom Le Grand Noir is an affordable luxury, Saturday night wine that they're pushing the boat out because they normally spend $8 and now they're spending $12. And for others, it's their Wednesday night wine because on Saturday they spend 25 or 30. So understand that. And these wines really do fit into supermarkets. They fit into casual restaurants and so on. Having said that, and it's a little bit schizophrenic, if you like, we have been and we are in some Michelin-starred restaurants. And we do get listed in that way. We've been in Gordon Ramsay's restaurant in London and so on. But that's not really where these wines are intended to be at their price point and at the volumes they're selling at.
But can I just say one thing? It's because you're delivering quality in beautiful packaging.
Well, thank you. And that's the two things, and I shouldn't say this. I am going to say the quality is there. We've had some 92 points from the enthusiasts and so on. But the quality is only like one leg of the stool. As far as I'm concerned, packaging, you've got to get people to buy it the first time. And that's the package. If they like the quality, they'll buy it again. Number 2, distribution, unless they can find it, they won't buy it again. So those 3 things are the three legs
So how does it vary between these two?
So going back to that, I need a distributor who can get this into broad distribution. So I can tell you in our 72 countries, some of those countries are buying a pallet or two. Right? Others are buying by the container, which is what we really need to do. And we have brilliant distribution in India, in Belgium, the States. I don't know if we're still that, but we're the 11th biggest French wine in the States last
Fantastic,
year.
bravo!
And we are the #1 French wine in India. We're very big, as the volumes in India aren't that big, but we're big in Estonia. We're not very good in Germany. We're not very good in Netherlands and Britain. So we're working on those, but we do need a broad distributor who will go in and talk to big distributors, chain of restaurants or chain of retailers. Cave Chéri, totally different.
Okay.
This is, so basically to say, Le Grand Noir sells itself. It's got Chardonnay on the label or Pinot Noir on the label, the sheep, the name. We just got to get that name out there in front of them. Cave Chéri it's a hand sell if it is anything. Okay. So basically, you've got to persuade somebody to buy it. So either we're going to have to do the work to get people to go into a wine store or a restaurant and they'll know the name. That's going to be very hard. We don't have that much money. So we need the sommelier, very much the sommelier, or we need the cavista, the guy in the wine shop, to understand the brand of the wine, what's it about. He or she has got to love it, to get it, to understand it. And they have got to communicate that to the customer. So tastings, crucial.
Okay.
One of the things I'm looking at doing right now is producing half bottles and even quarter bottles. And what I want to do is give the sommelier and the shop some quarter bottles with the bottles so that they can open one and say, here it is. And that also allows us to do something we don't talk enough about, which is cross-selling. So we actually, with the Chardonnay, on the back label of the Chardonnay, it refers to the fact we also make a Cabernet Sauvignon. Like it says, it's just a little... I want people, because they're not necessarily going to see the wines in the same store, they're on different shelves. I want them to do across. Now, in terms of Cave Chéri, we started with a white, we do a red, we do a pink, and now we did a few bottles of what we call pet nat, because it's not a natural pet nat. And I need the retailer not only to sell more bottles of this, but I want them to cross-sell and say to somebody who's bought the white, why don't you try the red? And I'm going to rely on sampling a lot for that.
Okay. So obviously the label is really important. So before you've even chosen what you're going to put in the bottle, or have you already figured out the label? Does that come afterwards?
No, I don't. I can't say which comes. It's a bit like talking to somebody making movies. Sometimes they've got the casting, casting's in their head and the script's in their head, and it's all kind of happening at the same time. No, I think when you're starting the brand, and I'll talk a little bit about labels in a second, but when starting the brand, we kind of know what the wine's going to be. And the wine has to over-deliver, I hope, for the price we're asking. It has to be stuff that I will happily drink. Do I drink the zero alc that often? Not really, but it is, if I wanted to drink a zero alc, it's what I would drink. And Grand Noir, the black sheep, the sheep turns, when everybody else goes right, we go left. So that's what the sheep is about. A lot of people don't even know it's a sheep. They know it's an animal. But we've done some label recognition.
Obviously a sheep.
I think so. But people, I think very crucially, and this is if anybody in any business, and especially my business, we overestimate the time, the amount of the brain that our brand
absolutely
gets.
People are busy.
They've just seen it. So, whereas Cave Chéri, what does Cave Chéri mean? Is it a grape? Is it a place? What is it? Actually is, and that's also, by the way, a lot of people, when they see a wine, Irancy. What is that? Is that a brand? Is it whatever? It's a place in France. Is it red? Is it white? Yeah. We presume that people know this stuff, and there's no reason. There's a million different wines out there. Why is anybody going to know about anything? So Cave Chéri means, in Georgian, coming together. Why coming together? Basically, it's a fat, old, former wine critic from Britain, me, and a cool 40-odd-year-old cool Georgian winemaker. So two very different people.
This is Vladimir.
From different countries. Yeah. And essentially we're blending wines from different regions in Georgia. We're blending different grapes. So there's 11 different grapes in there. We're blending vintages. It's a multi-vintage. And we're blending techniques. Some of that wine was made in an amphora and some in Senegal, some in oak. So essentially that's all about coming together. And I wanted the label to reflect that. So you've got these two roads, these two paths coming together. And because we're in Georgia and there are chapels and monasteries everywhere. That's our Georgian, that's the Georgian part of it. And we have put some Georgian language on, and it's impenetrable. So everything about this is what I call a discovery wine. It's, basically what I want.
So this is for consumers, wine drinkers who want that discovery experience.
And they're not necessarily what I'd call, amateurs de vin, wine enthusiasts. They're people who want something that is good, I hope, that is different. Yeah. And this is going to cost them $35. It's between $30 and $40.
So it's a bigger investment than the Grand Noir, but we're still not into the, $100, $200 a bottle.
It's let's say three times, maybe 4 times as much, but it's going to be drunk in a different way.
Yeah. So these are not necessarily two different consumers, but they're marketed in a different way to reach a different consumer, essentially, right? And this is a discovery wine.
A discovery wine to me. And again, it's quite interesting because I'm doing another book on the wine people, different kinds of people that buy different wines on different days for different reasons. Yeah. And there are the people who want experiences, and there are what I call the wine curious. And they are not necessarily the ideal target because in a way, they are one-night stands. So they're going to buy my Georgian wine today and they're going to buy somebody else's Peruvian wine tomorrow. Yeah. And that's one of my problems with English sparkling wine, which I think it relies a lot on people trying something new and they're not going to hang around. But it would be very nice if people discover my wine, buy 6 bottles or 12 bottles and keep going with it. Yeah. But essentially, what I want is to make the whole thing, as you've just said, an experience for them and they can talk to their friends. I found this wine, it does this. Can I do that with Le Grand Noir? I can try. But essentially, that's not really where we are at. What I do want, though, and I think is important, is for my wine to have enough personality that it's not just to be. And what I talk about is the difference between being a brand and a label. And essentially, most wines are labels. Most wines are, unfortunately, it doesn't matter if it's Chianti or it's Chablis or it's Chateau Machin in Bordeaux. If you ask people the next day, what did you drink last night? They don't know who made the Chablis, and they don't necessarily even remember that it was a Chablis. So we have got to get some humility into this and to understand that I have an image I use, when I'm doing public speaking and so on, which is a picture of the brain. And I break the brain up into Napa, Médoc, Rioja, da-da-da-da. And somebody in the audience goes, well, why haven't you included my region or my grape or whatever? And that's not it. The next slide is sex, work, family, health, and wine is a tiny little dot. And I'm saying that is it. You are part of that dot. And if you think you're bigger than that, you're crazy.
Okay. So how do you decide on the blend? How do you decide on what grape varieties you're going to put in the bottle?
So blending, to me, let's start with Le Grand Noir. Blending, my partner there is a guy called Hugh Ryman, who's been a flying winemaker, he lives here in Bordeaux, did stages at Yquem and Petrus and so on, but he's worked in everywhere, sort of Moldova and Hungary and California, everywhere. And what we're trying to do here is to give somebody a style of Chardonnay that they're not going to get from everybody else. Okay. So we wanted it to be lighter, less oaky, so 13%, not Terrific. 14 or whatever, dry. And we want it to deliver a little bit of oak, but just very second year, not very much. And there, what we're playing on is the different altitudes. So when it's a hot year, we go to more high ground. But secondly, we decided early on that we're not in Limoux. Limoux can do really good Burgundy style Chardonnay. I lived in Burgundy. I don't want to make Burgundy. If I want to make Burgundy, I'd be in Burgundy. Okay. So we want to make something that was, if you like, mid-Atlantic, between the New and Old World. So we put some Viognier in there. And the Viognier is 15% of the blend, more or less. Okay. And when we started, we called it Chardonnay Viognier. And in the US, they said, do you want to sell this or not? And we said, yeah, we kind of do. And they said, well, in that case, call it Chardonnay. Because legally you can, 15%. If you're in the Chardonnay Viognier bit, you're in the other wine section. So it says, I like being transparent, and it says on the back, 15% Chardonnay, and we do the same with the other wines. With Cave Chérie, we talk about this separately, if you like, there we're talking about a whole range of Georgian grapes. And that was really working.
I mean, this is a remarkable blending experience. I mean, this is remarkable. We're going to talk about that a little later.
100 components. We'll come back.
We'll come back to that. But so essentially, do you say, okay, I know the kind of wine I want to make for this customer, and I know, for instance, they're going to want a recognizable international variety.
Yeah.
Right.
We do one wine that breaks the pattern, which is the GSM, Grenache Syrah Mourvèdre, which Rosemount, a once important brand, invented in Australia. So it's a Côte du Rhône blend. And that's the one wine that doesn't tell you immediately. And that is, on the other hand, we started doing that probably 10, 12 years ago, in the days before red blend was a thing. Now we put red blend on the label. And by the way, I would say that we made the label designer, who is a genius, by the way, who now lives in California and works for very big people. I couldn't afford to use him on my other wines. He actually... So with this wine, we actually made, when we started out Le Grand Noir, we didn't have any capital. We didn't have money. We're coming up with the idea of an international brand with nothing behind us. So I made the label designer, who is a genius, who's now working for big brands in California. I made him a partner. So essentially, I knew that we would have to have somebody who, A, gave us a great label to start with, but B, would carry on with it. So he's done Hendrick's Gin and all sorts of big brands like that. And every 2-3 years, we retweak the labels. And we are actually retweaking this label right now. And Chardonnay is going to be in bigger letters, I think, than it is now. And we're playing with colors.
Okay. And then say you're going to do a discovery wine, there you can experiment more with obscure grape varieties that people haven't necessarily heard of.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
But on the other hand, what I'm doing there is the back label has got loads of information. I mean, far more information than anybody wants, but you'll find all the vintages, all the grapes and so on. It's all over the heads of most people, but it's part of the story of the wine.
Okay.
And there's a QR code, go and visit and find out. So I want to take people down that journey, that road in one way. And one of the things I'm playing with Cap Sherry is going to be a 3D experience where in a shop you can put on the headphones, the goggles, and visit the vineyards, see us blending it. And so, but basically it's a different experience.
Thank you for joining us for that fascinating conversation with the always interesting Robert Joseph. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I hope you check out the rest of our episodes. Our show is produced in partnership with Wine Voices, powered by Wine Searcher, the world's largest wine and spirits database. And we can give you a 10% discount on their annual Wine Searcher Pro subscription. Just put in the code JNWS at the checkout and follow the link in the description.